Hey everyone, welcome to the MSL Podcast. I'm James McCormick.
I'm Paul Hahn. All right, so this podcast is going to be about McCormick student leaders, and we're going to talk about what's going on in the sports industry, what's going on with our club, and how we're relating to the sports industry, and also try to get some guests on, try to hear from their experiences, and help those who are trying to work in sports get into the industry and find their career path that's going to be most successful for them, as well as talk about some current events that are going on in the industry and what teams are trending in the direction of doing in terms of, marketing, social media, sales, etc. So that's really what this is going to be about. So we're going to start off by introducing ourselves. So what's your major, James, and where are you from?
All right, I'm from Long Island, New York, and I'm a sport management major.
What year are you?
A sophomore.
Nice. So I'm a junior sports management major from Littleton, Massachusetts. I just transferred to UMass this semester. I went to St. Joseph's College of Maine for 2 years, and then I was a business and sport management major there, and then just transferred here this semester and joined MSL a couple weeks in. How long have you been in MSL?
Basically, since I got here last year, we had a kickback where I got to meet some of the people at MSL, and then I've been to every meeting since.
Great.
Last fall I got elected as general executive member, and I've been serving that for the past year. And then recently we had elections again, and I'm now the club relations chair. Also, PVTO's coming up. I am the co-director of communications and broadcasting for that.
I'm sure we'll get into this a little bit later, but
Sure.
For those who don't know what PVTO is, and that's one of our big things at McCormick Student Leaders, do you want to kind of explain what that is for the audience?
So basically, PVTO is a completely student-ran high school basketball tournament. We basically invite all the teams, and we set up broadcasting, which obviously I'm a part of. We have marketing, where we have gotten a bunch of stuff for both social media and the fan experience at the game. We also have philanthropy, sponsorship. There's probably a lot of other things I'm forgetting, but...
Do you want to get into kind of our experience and background in sports? What, other than MSL, what have you done in your time here?
Other than MSL, I've done marketing for UMass Athletics. I started that this semester, and we basically just what I've done basically is tabling for most of the games. Every football game, we've set up a table, whether it's lot 11 at the main entrance, student entrance, and we're giving away merch, or we give away like pens and pads.
Yeah, of course.
Those are popular for some reason.
No, that makes sense. Everybody wants their UMass merch, right?
Yeah.
So just a little bit of background on me. My first internship was after my freshman year of college. I worked for the Portland Sea Dogs AA minor league baseball team of the Boston Red Sox for the whole summer that year. And I was a game day operations intern, so I did a lot of stuff on the field and the ticket office, ushering, and a lot of fan experience things. We would go out on the field and run the promotional games like musical chairs. We had a lobster toss because it was in Maine. That was really fun. That was one of my favorite parts. Did concessions, and then got pretty familiar with the ticket office system. On the off weeks, they would have us go in and work on projects and try to make cold calls, sell to customers for our special events, such as like the fireworks game, the 4th of July game. We had a bunch of different fireworks games. And then after my freshman year, I had an internship with the St. Joe's athletic department. Actually, I had it both years, freshman and sophomore year. But I was doing, again, game day stuff mostly. And then I'd probably say around middle of my sophomore year, transitioned into social media, doing video and photo for mostly St. Joe's basketball at the time, but I also got into lacrosse and baseball and softball in the spring. And then last summer, I did an internship with the North Shore Navigators of the New England Collegiate Baseball League, and I was their social media and video content coordinator. So I did all the video content for Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, or most of the content for Twitter, other than like broadcast clips. But yeah, tried out different things with player interviews, mic'd ups, different TikTok trends, and highlight reels. Got a lot of good experience from that. And then on the side, I was doing over the summer, running my own media business, paulheimmedia.com, reaching out to freelance clients, high school and AAU, to try to help them promote their brand on social media, doing video and photo. So some clients included New England Baseball, which is one of the top high school baseball club programs in the country, and then also AAU basketball. I did their championship tournament in May last year as well, and created a few highlight videos for them, as well as did their photos. And then after coming to UMass, I've joined the athletic department as a video intern. I do video content for the athletic department. I'm actually filming hockey against BU tonight, so that's going to be a fun thing for me. But yeah, that's a little bit of my background.
Wow, that's a lot, dude.
Thank you. Yeah, I've tried to keep myself busy. Actually, this isn't my first podcast either. I've done Sports Business Take, which I co-founded with one of my friends from St. Joe's, and we've been doing that for about a year and a half. We talk about similar stuff to what you and I are going to talk about, except that it's not club related.
Yeah.
Have guests on from the industry, talk about current events. Actually, what we're going to talk about today, I talked about earlier today on my other podcast. So, yeah, definitely excited to be here and get an opportunity with McCormick Student Leaders to show how awesome the club is. Because this club, since I've been here, I mean, I can already see how beneficial being in this club to get the connections in the industry is, and how really everybody in the club cares about seeing everybody as a community succeed and, you know, go on to have great careers after.
Yeah. MSL's been probably the greatest thing I've done here at college. Everything like sports related that I've done, like even this podcast, PVTO, like that would not have been possible if I didn't, you know, put my foot in the door.
Yeah, for sure.
Get involved at MSL.
I think that's definitely what seems like MSL's a lot about, is getting your foot in the door and trying to figure out what you want to do within the industry, you know, whether you're interested in marketing or sales or social media or, you know, something else entirely. You could be fan engagement, concessions, whatever route you want to pick. I think MSL really helps you figure out where you want to be after college. So I think that's definitely a beneficial reason to participate and, you know, be involved with the club. Do you want to talk about a little bit some of the things that have been going on this semester in terms of what MSL's been doing, maybe some of the trips we've done, and some of the events that we're going to put on this week, actually?
Yeah. Obviously, this week is PVTO. I'll mention that in a second. We started the semester. We had 2 guest speakers, Michael Coyne and Ari Miller, which were really nice. A lot of feedback has been, you know, they love the guest speakers, and we should get more for next semester.
Yeah, for those who don't know, can you just kind of describe what each of those guys does a little bit, what their roles are?
I kind of glossed over that.
No, all good, man. I'm keeping you flowing. I got you.
So basically, Michael Coyne is one of the basketball commissioners at the Big East. He talked a lot about realignment and NIL when he spoke to us. Ari Miller is more of a mental health advocate in the sports industry. He talked a lot about, one of the things I loved was the breathing exercise he made us do. Because I'm like, is this going to work? And then, like, we did it. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah, I've done those before. Yeah. Those are definitely super helpful. I was at Michael's speech. I wasn't able to do Ari's because of internship. But that was definitely one of the things that I really liked about MSL when I first joined, was noticing how you bring in UMass alumni that have been in the program before and get them involved, and that's been such a huge thing, especially with the McCormick Career Fair that we had a few weeks ago. Do you maybe want to tell the people a little bit about that, because obviously this was my first one, but you've now been to 2 of them, so can you tell people a little bit about that and what MSL does with it?
Yeah, so basically the Career Fair, this year I believe we had around 50.
Yeah, it was over 50 teams.
Yeah. Which is like a lot compared to last year. Last year we also had a lot, but like the improvement we've made has been insane. I helped out a little bit with reaching out to some of the teams, and we had weekly meetings that I always attended, asked questions of like, okay, what's happening with this? And then towards the end I became the production assistant, and I basically got a mini mic and walked around the Career Fair asking both attendees and recruiters, just like, oh, who are we here with today? And then what was your favorite part?
Yeah, that sounds actually pretty similar to a lot of the stuff I've done in some of my internships. So that's cool, man. That's good experience for sure. Because you get comfortable talking in front of a camera, you get comfortable talking to people in the industry, and that's what it's all about. I mean, I think that was the point of the career fair, was to make those connections, and then hopefully it helps you when you go to apply for an internship with them, or you go to apply for a job with them after college. If you can get that deep of a connection, and that definitely helps. I think in this industry, it's a lot about who you know as well as what you know. So I think using LinkedIn and career fairs and organizations like MSL to get connections is really vital to your success going forward in your career, whatever part of sports you want to work in. I think that's one common theme is you really have to get to know people and really extend yourself with that outreach.
Yeah, I will say LinkedIn probably was the best way, to connect with people.
Yeah. That's what I found too.
When I first got here, Marco, the original host of this podcast, he was one of the first people I talked to, and the entire kickback, he was telling me, you got to make a LinkedIn, James. You got to make a LinkedIn. And I'm like, all right, I'll make one. Yeah. And it helped me a lot when I was just first starting out because, it was like my second week of college. I had no idea what the hell I was doing.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I feel you. I mean, I think I've used it a lot for my other podcasts to be able to reach out to guests, and we'll do some of that on here as well. But I think having that way to make the connection is super valuable because people's emails get flooded all the time with spam and stuff, and you never really know if you're going to get a response. So I think LinkedIn is a little bit more personal because you can see who really is behind the note. So I think that's definitely a good way to make connections for sure. Is there anything else with PBTO or MSL that you want to mention that we have been doing this semester? I know, I went to the craft sports career fair that we went to with the entire craft group when we went down to Foxborough and saw a Rebs game. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I was going to say I wanted to bring that up because that was one of, if not my favorite part of the semester.
Definitely me too.
I love going on the trips because we do multiple, before you were here this spring, we went to an Islanders game, and we got to sit we were right next to the loud section of the stadium. Like people had drums, just banging on it the whole time, and I really liked it because I'm an Islanders fan too. I grew up on Long Island.
Yeah, Long Island. That makes sense.
Obviously, why else would I be an Islanders fan? But we also went to a Yankees game last semester. We had our own suite and everything, which is the same with the Revs trip. I always love a free suite. I mean, that's just me, but
yeah, I mean, we definitely got a good deal on that. That was pretty cool way to see a game, and also make, like I was talking about, make those connections and hear from people who have been in the industry for 20 plus years, and really get to hear from them about what is going to make us most successful going into the jobs that they were in when they first got in, and how the industry has changed and what it looks like today. I think really was very useful to me to be able to hear about that.
Yeah.
And then obviously I had Cathal Conlon, one of the speakers on my other podcast. That was an amazing experience to be able to make that connection. So definitely was thankful for that trip and all of the opportunities that MSL has provided for me so far.
Yeah, I think with that craft career fair that you mentioned, that was before the game, obviously, and I was really happy with it. I didn't know what to expect going in because, I was just hearing oh, we're also going to a career fair before. I'm like, oh, okay. Let me get some resumes.
That was my first career fair too, so I didn't really know what to expect either. And I think you think you're going to get a lot of time with somebody when you go to one of those things, but then you realize I kind of have to sell myself in a minute or a minute and a half, but I can't be too robotic, I still want to make that person-to-person connection and relate to them on a human level while also displaying how much I've done and what I can offer to their organization, which is a really hard balance to strike, and not a lot of people who are doing it for the first couple times know how to do it. I know when we were at the McCormick Career Fair, I wasn't super warmed up for a little bit, but after talking to a few teams, I really started trying to get into a rhythm of connecting on both a personal and professional level, where I was selling myself, but also making sure I got to know the actual person behind the desk.
Yeah, I think that was also something I struggled with, like, trying to warm up and, because you want to put your best version of yourself out there.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you're thinking in your head, like, at least for me, like, oh, I got my elevator pitch ready. Hi, I'm James Warren, blah, blah, blah. And then go up, shake their hand, and just,
Yeah, no, it can be very easy to forget it. And then you have to have the presence of mind to be able to recover yourself and actually display who you really are without, damaging the relationship, which is tough, man. A lot of people don't know how to do that, and I think a lot of people haven't had airtime like you and I are getting right now, where they have the skill to be able to go up to somebody and just speak to them without any fear, and I think that's one of the things in the sports industry. You really, you can be afraid, but you have to be able to communicate to people in a way that displays who you are as well as what you can offer to them. You know what I mean? And why, like in the case of making connections in a career fair, why you would be a good fit for their organization, but also what you're trying to learn and how you're trying to grow. And I think sports is one of those industries where you're always learning something every day. That's why I love it, is because I know I can always keep improving myself. And I think that's anybody who's trying to get into the industry, that's something that you have to know is you're going to have to make those little improvements every day and expand beyond your comfort zone to try to learn new skills, because you're going to have to.
Yeah.
So if you don't have anything else about MSL, I think maybe we get into our topic of the day.
I'll just mention PVTO.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I believe it's 2 games Friday, 2 games Saturday, and then 6 games Sunday.
And how can people buy tickets for that?
I believe it's at the door.
Awesome. Yeah.
Also not my department.
Yeah.
I've been pretty focused on the broadcasting stuff, so I'll offer a little insight into that. I'll also say the Pioneer Valley Tip-Off YouTube is where we're streaming this year. And so you can find...
Go follow that on YouTube.
Yeah, because I don't know if this episode will be out before the PVTO happens. And so if you want to watch, what me and my friend Oleg cooked up, basically, all the live streams will be on that channel.
Yeah, that's great. Definitely a good way to display the club's biggest event.
Yeah, because even I believe we're uploading on the McCormack Student Leaders channel, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, on there there's still the games from last year that I helped. Because last year I also worked with the PVTO. I did game day ops, which is something a lot of people that are new to MSL and they're hearing a way to get involved. Game day ops is probably the best way to get involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, what I did was camera and philanthropy. And so for a lot of it, I got to hold one of the cameras. My favorite was the baseline camera 2, because I got to zoom in on and it was great because even because Oleg was the director last year and now this year we're co-directors. But last year he was even telling me oh, you're doing such a great job with the camera.
Yeah.
Because I was trying to get a zoom in on the player dribbling up the court, slowly zoom out. I always found that stuff cool.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, that's part of the reason that I love doing the video that I do, both freelance and for UMass, is I love being able to capture the moment in sports, and I think that's one of the things that makes social media so special in sports is that's some of the most passionate moments in human life, I think sports has the ability to make people the happiest they've ever been and the saddest they've ever been, and being able to capture the moments that make that happen is why I love doing sports social media, and I think why we're both going to be good at doing this for MSL. So excited to be here, excited to continue to promote the club and see what we have going forward with this. But for now, let's talk about Juan Soto, because that's a big deal in sports, man. I mean, you're talking about the biggest deals in sports history. This quite literally is the biggest deal in sports history. So Juan Soto signed with the New York Mets for 15 years, $765 million, which, I mean, you looked at the number at first, it's kind of crazy that $750 million can go to one person, right? But just a little more details about the contracts. There's an opt-out after 5 years, $75 million signing bonus, and performance incentives that could make the overall contract value above $800 million with no deferred money. So I wanted to ask you, when you saw this happen, what was the first thing going through your head?
I won't lie, I laughed.
Oh, yeah?
I'm a neutral, obviously. I'm a Dodgers fan, so it's been a great couple months for baseball for me, at least. Especially since there's a shocking amount of Yankees fans here at UMass.
Yeah,
I thought it'd be a
was
lot of
surprised with
Red
that
Sox,
too.
and obviously there is, but there's also a lot of Yankees fans. So I was like, if the Dodgers lose, I'm screwed. So thankfully they pulled it together. And so I have also a lot of Yankees friends at home, and that was obviously, I think that was the first reaction I saw because I didn't see the notification. I just saw my group chat blow up. I'm like, oh, what happened? And it's just my friends being, pissed that like.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the Yankees side of it, you offered him basically the same amount of money. You offered him $760 million. It's a $5 million difference over 16 years. And you just had him. He took you to the World Series, and you couldn't deliver a championship. And I wonder if that played a factor. But I think really the biggest factor in him signing with the Mets, and I talked about this earlier today on my other episode, my other podcast I did, was that the Mets farm system is far more advanced than the Yankees. The Yankees are currently ranked 29th in farm system depth among MLB, and the Mets are ranked 13th. So Juan Soto could have looked at that and said, hey, the Mets have more of a future, and I know they're going to be good in 5-10 years, et cetera. Whereas the Yankees, I don't know that their pipeline is there to be successful in the future. So I think that really could have had an impact on where he signed. But I think this signing is so unique because of the fact that he's 25. Nobody ever reaches MLB free agency at 25. And, it's mostly because of the service time rule, which is that you have to be in the league for 6 years. And if you're not, you can't reach free agency until then. So most guys are 28, 29, 30 by the time they get to free agency. But he's 25, 26. So that plays a huge factor into into how much money he's going to get. I think we've really only seen a couple other cases in the 21st century. I know you prepared a little bit about Alex Rodriguez and how that deal went. That's one of the other examples of somebody who's reached free agency before really like 27, 28 in the MLB this century.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like, he's 25, 26, and, it's so young. And then, like, you're locking him up for 15 years. Like, he's going to be around, like, his 40s.
Yeah, he'll be 40 by the time the contract's over.
Which is, like, insane to me because it's like, is he going to be playing until 40?
Yeah, I mean, I think what they're hoping for is obviously the prime years is when they're going to win a World Series or 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Because the money that profits off of that World Series is so beneficial to the club that it more than makes up for the money that they invested in the contract. Plus, and I made this point earlier today, having him there is going to make it a more desirable location for other free agents to want to sign there, which will only help them win more titles. Because we all know that on-field success translates into business success. The more successful you are on the field, the more money you're going to make off the field. And I think that was a big part of this investment, was knowing that that money is going to be made again, over again, by the time this contract's done.
Yeah, and also with baseball, obviously it's unique compared to the other major sports in America where there's no salary cap either. So it's not like you spend $765 million on a single player, and like who else are you gonna pay? Like if the owner's willing to pay someone, there's nothing stopping them besides maybe like a luxury tax.
Absolutely, yeah. So for those who don't know, baseball's luxury tax is $225 million for the year. And if you spend over that, you're taxed on the amount of dollars that you spend over that. So I use this example on my other podcast today. If you spend $300 million, you spend $75 million over the 225, you're taxed on that $75 million. But to Steve Cohen, that doesn't really matter. I don't know what their Mets payroll is going to be for this specific year, but it's going to be over the luxury tax. But his net worth is $21.3 billion.
Jeez.
So to him, $750 million is a relatively small number. And it's a good price to pay because he knows it's a smart investment based on Soto's metrics and the analytics that they've looked at. If you go on Soto's Baseball Savant, which is basically one of the websites where you can track advanced metrics to predict how players are going to be in the future and compare them to hitters in the league right now or players in the league at their position who are currently playing. Soto ranks in the 100th percentile in 4 categories.
Wow.
The 99th percentile in 3 categories, and the 98th percentile in 2 categories, and the 94th percentile in 2 categories. So clearly he's one of the best players in the league. So he does deserve to be paid like one of the best players in the league, and Steve Cohen just provided him the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Also, I think timing plays a part into it because obviously, Dodgers fan here, Ohtani got his mega contract.
Yeah, he reset the bar.
Yeah, and so I think it's kind of shocking. Like we were talking about it. We also wrote it down a little bit. How Juan Soto's being paid like the best player in baseball, but you could also make the argument he's not the best player in baseball.
He's not even. Yeah, he has the highest contract in sports history now, but may not even be the best player in his sport, simply because he can't throw a ball 100 miles an hour like Shohei Ohtani can, but he can still hit the ball in a relatively similar fashion. So from the hitting side, he does deserve that level of money, but it depends on how a franchise looks to value specific statistics and what they believe is going to propel their team to success. And I think in this case, the Mets needed a big bat, and they definitely got one with Juan Soto.
I mean, you match that up with Lindor. Alonso might not be on the team
if they re-signed him.
Yeah, if they re-sign him.
Pretty solid pitching staff. You know, Edwin Diaz, their closer, is a very solid player. So this puts them in a position to be able to be competitive for a long time. And like I said, their talent pipeline is starting to increase. I know one of the prospects that came up this year was Luis Angel Acuna, which is Ronald Acuna's younger brother, and he is one of their top prospects. He's going to be in the league for a while, I would assume, and he's one of the more highly touted prospects in all of baseball. So the fact that they have that type of pipeline coming up definitely helps Soto's vision to see, like, okay, this is where the Mets are going, and this is why I want to be here for a long time. And he's still in a big market. Yes, he went one New York team to the other, but he's staying in a big market. He's going to be the guy. And I think that was one of the things he wanted, was to be the guy on a team. And I think the Mets are going to provide him that.
I was going to say, yeah, because with the Yankees, you got Judge, you got even Stanton. So when he got there, he wasn't the guy. And if you watch the playoffs, I think you can argue he was the guy for them in the postseason. But I think that could have also played a part into it because, obviously it's just a few million. I'm saying a few million, but...
yeah, to Steve Cohen, it's just a few million. I wanted to ask you, do you think we see this trend continue where athlete contracts continue to just climb and climb and climb, specifically in sports that don't have salary caps? Because we've seen, for example, Ohtani and now Soto redraw the line the last couple of years. Do you think it keeps going up, and does it reach a certain point where there needs to be a salary cap implemented?
That's a good question. I feel like it's weird because, like you said, there's no salary cap, but this even happens in other sports. I think NFL is probably the most popular example where
there's a salary cap there, though.
Yes, but I'm saying with resetting the market.
Yes.
Quarterbacks are constantly resetting the market, even if they're not the best QB. Like the Mahomes contract, when that was signed, people were like, "Oh my God, are the Chiefs screwed for the future?" Like
even
that's a lot
what Jordan
of money.
Love got last year.
But that's what I'm saying. Compared to the contracts that quarterbacks are getting now, nobody cares about the Mahomes contract.
Yeah,
that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, right.
So I think in baseball, there's really nothing stopping players from asking for more money. It's just up to the owners, I guess, if they're willing to pay that or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the owner's decision kind of depends on the success of the league. We've seen kind of a resurgence of baseball's fandom coming back over the last couple of years with the new implementation of rules that have made the game faster. On average, last year's games were a half hour shorter than 2023.
Wow.
And it's starting to bring fans back a little bit. You saw the viewership numbers jump up last year. But I do think if that doesn't continue, if there's a decline again, then I do think maybe the owners will look at their declining profits and say, okay, we can't offer as much money to these players anymore. Mm-hmm. And they'll have to readdress that in the collective bargaining agreement the next time that they look at it.
Yeah, which is also might be a hot topic because I wrote down with the Alex Rodriguez thing. You know, basically when he signed his contract, 10 years, $252 million back in 2000. That was like resetting the market back then.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, obviously, we all know it didn't really pay off in the end. Stayed there for 3 to 4 years and then traded to the Yankees, and then he saw a lot of success. But I have the front office sports quote here. It says, the MLB suffered both internal and external strife as a result of the Rodriguez deal. The league went through a bruising round of labor negotiations in 2002 with the MLB Players Association, narrowly averting a work stoppage with a last-minute agreement that, among other measures, reinstated the league's luxury tax. Many small market team owners decried the Rodriguez deal and the growing economic disparity in the sport, and after experimenting with the various formulas, MLB in 2002 also introduced a street pool revenue sharing system in which each team contributed 34% of its local revenue to the pool.
Yeah, so do you think this Juan Soto deal reshapes the market in such a way that the collective bargaining agreement is going to be affected by it?
I think it can be. Obviously, because, back then, $252 million was pretty. I think
it was
you
the
could
highest
compare
contract
that
ever
to
at that
the
time.
situation we're in now.
Yeah.
Where, like we were just talking about, are these contracts going to keep going higher and higher? These small market teams are not going to be able to keep up with like Yankees, Mets, Dodgers.
Yeah, that's kind of the way the competitive balance has been for a while in the MLB. You're not going to see a mid-market team like the Pittsburgh Pirates or something offer Juan Soto this contract. It's always been the big market teams are more competitive, and then the small market teams try to develop their talent pipelines and be successful off of that, lock up guys young, and then, like the Rays have done, kind of piece together teams year in and year out that are going to make the playoffs and have a shot to do it, and that's how they're going to make their money. But I do think in terms of Juan Soto, this does set the precedent of you're going to need a certain level of dollars for a certain caliber of player.
Yeah.
And I think this really is going to trend forward in terms of this is the new bar. If you want to be paid like the highest player ever, you're going to be paid around $700 million. That's the new bar. 10 years ago it was Mike Trout signing a $430 million contract. But now it's Juan Soto. So that it completely changes the business because the more you can invest into your product on the field, if you have success off of that investment, the more you're going to see it coming back to you in revenue streams, both through ticket sales, merchandise, TV deals. You're going to be in more primetime games. People are going to pay more attention to you if you have big names like Juan Soto. So that's why it's such a big deal for the Mets.
I would say, yeah, I think that's a constant among like all sports where like if you get like a really marketable top player,
absolutely,
that's going to boost popularity. Like
yeah.
New Orleans when they drafted Zion, like
yeah,
they got a bunch of primetime games that they didn't really have before, and obviously he got hurt. But it boosts the popularity, and I think the Mets are already big market, so I feel like the boost might be a little less than like you would like normally expect from like a team getting like a star player.
Yeah,
and I think they are a very marketable team. Obviously, they have the OMG song during the postseason. Right. So they're already doing good in that market, and like I feel Soto will help them even more.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Unless you have any other thoughts, I think I'm all Juan Soto talked out for the day.
I will say, we'll come back to like they won Soto over the Yankees. I mean, how many times has that really happened?
Almost never.
Like, I feel like
you talk about the Yankees being the winningest franchise ever in the sport. What is their brand built on? They're built on spending money. That's how they win. They paid Alex Rodriguez. They paid Aaron Judge.
Yeah.
They gave Garrett Cole the biggest contract for a pitcher ever. And just yesterday, they gave Max Fried the biggest contract for a left-handed pitcher in the history of the game. So that's their brand, is spending money. And they put up relatively the same amount of dollars as the Mets. So you can't even really blame them for that.
Yeah.
But to, I guess be lost a free agent to a team where they haven't spent as much money, but they know their future is there, is going to be a tough pill for them to swallow, because while they've invested a lot in their product, it didn't get them the big fish, you know?
Yeah.
So it does show that there is a little bit of risk in investing too much into your product and making that your entire brand. I think there's a good competitive balance that you can strike between signing free agents and veteran players, as well as having those young kids come up through your talent pipeline to be able to, you know, sustain your team with like cheap-ish talent, you know, like cheap but effective talent and talent that is hungry and looking for success.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting because obviously I think the Mets are now obviously a World Series favorite.
They're a contender for sure.
Yeah. I think at least like ESPN, Bleacher Report, whatever, will have, you know, obviously throwing the Mets in there.
Yeah.
Don't know if they'll have them over the Dodgers. Obviously, personal bias. I think the Dodgers are still a better team, but I think like the season series between them, that's going to be really interesting to watch.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. I think this will put the Mets in a position to be successful, and I think it'll grow the league overall because now, you know, Juan Soto started out in the Nationals. DC isn't one of the bigger markets in the league, even though it is a big market.
Yeah.
In general, it's not one of the biggest markets in the MLB. So I think having him on there, even though they won the World Series in 2019, he wasn't, I guess, showed off as much as he could have been. There wasn't as much media attention around him because the flash wasn't there. You know, the everything that comes with a big market wasn't there. And then he goes to San Diego, which had a lot of press at the time because, you know, they're signing all these young players and great contracts, and they look like the future of the league. And then still not going to be as big of a market as New York, you know. Now he really has the chance to establish his legacy, and he's going to be a Met for a lifetime.
Pretty much, yeah. I think because he's already obviously established that he's worth it. Because when he got traded to the Yankees, it was a huge, like, you know, he's only got like a year left. He's got to prove himself, you know. Obviously, he's done a lot already, but like prove himself to get a contract even bigger than Ohtani. Like, I don't think even I saw that coming until like the season happened. I'm like, damn.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk about a lot about how players in contract years perform well over their, you know, normal expectations, but I think for Juan Soto, it's pretty consistent with what he's done his whole career, which is the crazy part, and what makes him such a unicorn and so unique, and why this deal is going to be so important for the league.
But that's a good point with the contract year deal. It's like, is he, because obviously the season he just had with the Yankees was awesome, and is he going to be able to produce to the same level next year, especially next year, because obviously the contract's fresh, it's going to be on the eyes of everybody. So even if he performs a little worse than last year, like, people are still going to be like, oh, was he worth the money? Even like in the long run, it will probably pay off for the Mets. I feel like they have the financial security to surround Soto with talent. Obviously, Lindor's already there. You brought up Edwin Diaz.
Yeah, it's a smart bet. It's a smart bet on their part, for sure.
How do you feel about the NL East in general? Like, obviously,
I mean, I think this makes it more competitive. You know, I think we're going to see a lot of fun rivalry matchups. You know, the Mets and the Phillies is going to be a great series next year. Mets and Braves is going to get more interesting now. I think it adds more dynamics to the game that fan bases get interested in and get invested in. So
I was going to say,
good for the league.
The NL East really has like 3 top teams in the NL, which is crazy. Like, we could, because I think, it was the same this year. Like, all 3 of those teams made the playoffs. Because I believe both Atlanta and the Mets were the final wild card spots, and it's 2 wild card spots. So I think you could predict that happen again, because I think Atlanta obviously had an off year. They were very injured.
They were hurt, yeah.
So I think they still have a very competitive team, although they did just lose to the Yankees. But I think they still have the talent there, which is going to make it interesting. Also interesting for the Mets and Soto, because obviously the AL East is a competitive division, but I feel like the NL East now is a more competitive division.
Yeah, it's certainly one of the most compelling things to watch in the sport is how that plays out and how those rivalries continue to develop. There's a lot of history in that division, and I think it'll be good for fans to see kind of a revival of some of the competitive fire that we've seen from that division in the past. And that'll only help the league because it'll lead to more ticket sales, more revenue, more viewership. So I think this deal is going to be great for the game going forward.
Yeah. All right.
I think that's about all I have for the day on Juan Soto, man. So thank you guys for listening. Yeah. This has been the first episode of the MSL Podcast, and hopefully we'll be bringing great content to you for a long time.
Make sure to follow us on all socials. Keep up, posting on YouTube and Spotify.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep. And check out the PVTO content this weekend.
That's true. PVTO this weekend. All right. From the MSL Podcast, I'm James McCormick.
I'm Paul Hahn.
Thank you for watching.
Thank you.